Chaos does not roar. It whispers through the machinery, seeps into the walls, and settles in the marrow of those who think themselves masters of the Imperium. No one marches into it and survives unshaken, not because of demons or psychic storms, but because understanding it requires surrendering the illusion of control. Those who chase chaos, who imagine it as an external enemy, are already lost. The corruption begins long before they see it. The observation decks of the research station hung over the warp-scarred void like a cathedral built from steel and radiation. It was called the Acheron Prism, though names meant nothing here. No map of stars could encompass the anomalies it monitored. No sensor could capture the subtle distortions that bled across reality in ways too quiet for alarm, yet too precise to ignore. The crew, a mixture of human operatives and cybernetic servitors, moved like puppets conditioned by procedure. Each footfall, each glance, each pause was accounted for. Yet even they could not predict the anomaly that would unfold within their own minds. Corruption began not in blood, but in certainty. Lieutenant Saris Kor had studied chaos for decades, cataloging patterns in the warp, noting behavioral deviations in those who touched it, observing psychic signatures that bent thought and memory. And yet, as he watched the latest readings flicker across the display grid, he realized the fundamental mistake. Chaos was not a thing that could be mapped, contained, or resisted. It was a system, a mirror of expectation and perception, a reflection of fear, and the station itself had become its instrument. Shifts appeared in the ether long before physical manifestations occurred. Systems hummed in rhythms that were almost imperceptible. Air filtration arrays pulsed at frequencies too low for human hearing. Gravity fields quivered by millimeters as if adjusting themselves to an unseen tide. Crew members reported subtle dizziness, brief lapses in attention, but these were dismissed as fatigue. Fatigue, however, was only the first layer of influence. Kor had learned that chaos does not announce itself with fire or claw. It infiltrates through consistency, through trust in the familiar. He watched the station's lumens flicker, subtle enough to escape conscious notice, yet enough to make the brain doubt what it saw. Instruments displayed readings that had no logical correlation. Calculations repeated themselves with variations too small to measure, but sufficient to destabilize expectation. By the time awareness dawned fully, it was already too late. The communications officer, a young adept named Aerith, paused mid-report, her eyes widening as if seeing a fractal unfold in the air before her. Her voice faltered, then steadied with a practiced correction. Kor noted her pulse. It was steady. Her neural implants registered no anomaly, yet he knew her mind was the first battlefield. Chaos does not invade through doors or bulkheads. It invades through certainty, and her certainty had been compromised without her even realizing it. The anomaly had begun quietly, spreading in patterns too subtle for sensors, too abstract for comprehension. No alarm sounded. Servitors moved through the corridors, following protocols with absolute precision, unaware that every motion they executed was subtly misaligned. Even the station itself responded as if alive. Conduits hummed at variable voltage, coolant systems fluctuated in flow, and data cables twisted faintly in ways inconsistent with maintenance logs. Chaos was here, not in the firestorms Kor had been trained to fight, but in doubt, in hesitation, in the quiet unraveling of cognition. And the longer the crew ignored the irregularities, the deeper the corruption took hold. By the observation deck's viewport, the void itself seemed altered. Stars shimmered with impossible frequencies. The warp's tendrils brushed against reality, subtle, almost benign, and yet Kor felt it in his chest, an inexorable weight pressing on certainty, bending understanding, turning knowledge into a weapon against itself. But chaos was never external. It was never distant. It existed in the mind, in expectation, in the illusion of control. The Acheron prism had become a lens through which the Imperium could not observe, only be observed. And the first crew members to understand this would be the first to break. Kor closed his eyes for a moment and felt the truth settle like ash in his lungs. The station hummed, the lights pulsed, and in the quiet, unobserved spaces between the walls and conduits, something waited, patient, intelligent, inevitable. Everything the Imperium believed about chaos was wrong, and the Acheron prism would prove it. If you want, I can continue Chapter 1, Part 2 next, diving deeper into how chaos infiltrates the crew and the station's systems. Do you want me to continue?
Prisoners of circumstance, or in this case, the crew of the Acheron prism, moved mechanically through the corridors. Every footstep, every glance, every pause had been preordained by the protocols embedded in the station's architecture and reinforced by its monitoring systems. Yet subtle disruptions in perception had already begun to erode the framework of obedience. The anomaly spread through the crew like a ghost virus, imperceptible at first, then insidious, then absolute. Kor moved through the central maintenance bay, noting the faint discrepancies in the hum of machinery. Power conduits pulsed with uneven rhythm, as though the station itself were breathing. Sensors reported stability, yet every instinct screamed dissonance. The anomaly did not announce itself through violence, it whispered through the familiar, bending expectation and forcing attention to question even the most mundane of patterns. The technicians labored blindly. Their tasks, routine calibrations, conduit realignments, coolant monitoring, took on a surreal weight. Each readout seemed slightly askew, as though the instruments had their own agendas. Irith at the comm station hesitated over her reports. She double-checked every figure, then triple-checked, unable to trust either herself or the instruments. Each correction only revealed another irregularity. Anxiety settled into the marrow, replacing confidence with persistent low-grade panic. The anomaly was patient. It did not strike with fire or explosion. It did not corrupt through overt psychic intrusion. Instead, it unfolded within expectation itself. The crew's every attempt to reassert order was anticipated and undermined subtly. Lights flickered fractionally, airflow in the corridors shifted, gravity fields wavered by millimeters. Each adjustment was nearly imperceptible, yet it accumulated, fracturing cognition. Even the station itself seemed to respond. Conduits realigned themselves just enough to create misreadings. Cooling fluids hummed against physics as understood. Diagnostic terminals output data that was accurate but incomplete, truths that when interpreted produced doubt. The anomaly worked not by breaking machinery, but by breaking certainty, and Kor realized too late that this was the true danger. Chaos had become structural, systemic, inescapable. By mid-cycle, subtle hallucinations had begun. Shadows flickered in peripheral vision. Auditory feedback loops repeated half-heard words. Instruments indicated readings that contradicted others, producing micro-errors in interpretation. The crew could not name what was wrong. They could only sense the instability, a creeping nausea of mind and body. Those who attempted to rationalize it found their own logic questioned by the environment itself. Kor observed without moving. He understood that to act directly against the anomaly would be futile. No weapon, no protocol, no procedural rigor could contend with a system that operated within perception itself. The anomaly did not attack, it integrated. It became part of cognition, part of expectation, part of the frameworks upon which survival depended. Resistance now required not action, but denial of certainty itself.
In the observation deck, the viewport offered a distorted panorama of the warp-tainted void. Stars shimmered in impossible patterns. Tendrils of immaterial energy drifted through the black, unnoticed by the instruments, but registered by the crew's subconscious awareness. The station's systems attempted to compensate, stabilizing readings, but the anomaly thrived in the interstices of correction. Every effort to restore certainty fed its growth. By the end of the cycle, fatigue settled deep into bone. The crew's bodies obeyed reflexively, yet their minds strained against invisible pressure. Sleep offered no refuge. The anomaly infiltrated dreams, bending perception before rest could restore equilibrium. And as Core reviewed the data, he understood the ultimate truth. The Imperium's conception of chaos as a distant, external threat of demons and heresy was entirely wrong. Chaos was never external. It was architecture, it was systems, it was patience, it was inevitability. And by the next cycle, the Acheron prism would have claimed more minds.
The anomaly no longer required subtlety to take hold. It had already seeded doubt in every conscious mind aboard. Crew members moved with mechanical precision, but their cognition fractured beneath the weight of constant uncertainty. Every instrument, every corridor, every flicker of light had become a potential lie, a distortion designed to destabilize. No one could trust perception, and distrust had become a cage tighter than any chain. Core walked through the central observation ring, watching the crew perform tasks they no longer understood. Hands adjusted controls reflexively. Eyes scanned readouts that promised stability while delivering ambiguity. Even the servitors, programmed for efficiency and precision, executed routines slightly off pattern, as though the station itself directed them to propagate doubt. The anomaly had begun to co-opt the machinery of obedience as a medium of psychological manipulation. Aerith paused at her console, fingertips hovering above the keys. A series of readings blinked across the screen, fluxes in power conduits, minor distortions in the station's structural integrity, irregular warp signatures in the surrounding void. All were within nominal thresholds according to the instruments, yet her instincts screamed otherwise. She tried to report, but her voice faltered. Words became unreliable. Logic wavered. The anomaly had infiltrated the gap between comprehension and action, turning thought itself into a weapon. The station's corridors began to feel alive. Conduits vibrated faintly underfoot. Air currents shifted in patterns too subtle to register consciously, yet sufficient to produce discomfort and imbalance. Shadows stretched and recoiled in the peripheral vision. The anomaly thrived in these interstices, spaces where human perception failed, yet bodies continued to obey, executing protocols with skeletal obedience while minds frayed at the edges. Core noted the first signs of dissociation. Crew members moved as if divided within themselves. One hand reached to adjust a terminal, while the other seemed to act independently. Eyes focused on readouts, yet attention drifted, reacting to stimuli the conscious mind could not identify. Sleep was impossible, but fatigue deepened, hollowing awareness. The anomaly did not need to strike violently, it needed only time and consistency. Communications with the Imperium had become irrelevant. Messages sent days ago remained unacknowledged, yet the station transmitted as if the act of transmission itself was required. Data loops repeated subtly, information folding back on itself. Attempted corrections only reinforced disorientation. The anomaly had internalized the station into its own design. Every system, every crew member, every perception was now a vector for its influence. In the observation deck, Core confronted the unbearable realization.
Chaos was not a force to be confronted or destroyed. It was a mirror of expectation, a reflection of fear and trust, a living pattern that exploited certainty. The Imperium's teachings, demons, heresy, psychic storms, were comforting fictions. Real chaos does not invade, it integrates. It does not kill with violence, but with inevitability. The first casualties are never flesh, but cognition, reason, and the illusion of mastery. The stars beyond the viewport pulsed in subtle cadence. Warp tendrils drifted close to the hall, brushing against reality in imperceptible waves. The anomaly responded in turn, adjusting flows of air, light, and gravity within the station with the precision of a surgeon. The crew would never see the manipulation, never detect the integration of chaos into every layer of their environment. They would only feel its effect in hesitation, uncertainty, and the slow erosion of identity. By the end of the cycle, the crew was silent, not for lack of words, but because thought itself had become an instrument of compliance. Every decision was anticipated, every hesitation catalogued, every instinct redirected. The Acheron prism had become a cathedral of inevitability, and the anomaly its invisible priest. Kor remained at the viewport, chest tight with the weight of understanding. Everything the Imperium had taught about chaos was wrong, and the station, now alive with subtle malice and infinite patience, would prove it. The anomaly was patient. The anomaly was inevitable, and the crew, helpless, precise, and fractured, were already its first converts. If you want, I can continue with Chapter 2, Part 1 next, showing the spread of Chaos's influence deeper into the crew and the station's systems. Do you want me to continue?
The day after the anomaly fully integrated into the station, the crew awoke not as individuals, but as instruments of perception. No alarms sounded, no warnings announced the transition. The Acheron prism operated on rhythms that were older than any human comprehension, timelines measured not in hours, but in micro-adjustments to thought and body. The lumen strips ignited in faint pulses, each variation imperceptible yet meticulously calibrated to maintain attention while destabilizing certainty. Crew members moved in sync, unaware of the subtle distortions guiding them. Even the act of breathing had become a choreographed element within the station's omnipresent influence. Kor moved through the command corridor, noting the silence. Technicians worked at panels, hands precise, eyes fixated, yet a tremor lingered beneath their motions. It was not fear, nor fatigue, nor overt stress. It was a subtle tension, a preemptive correction against imagined inconsistencies. The anomaly had already begun embedding itself into reflex, turning instinct into obedience. Observation of instruments became a ritual of compliance rather than analysis. The anomaly extended its reach through environmental nuance. Airflow shifted imperceptibly. Gravity micro-adjusted at nodes along the corridors. Light flickered at millisecond intervals. Each adjustment was within nominal parameters, yet collectively they created a cognitive feedback loop that strained perception. The mind, hungry for pattern, tried to impose meaning on these irregularities. It failed, and failure became a silent tutor, shaping compliance through self-doubt. Aerith at the comm station paused once more. A message from the Imperium blinked unacknowledged on her console. She reached to respond, hesitated, then withdrew her hand. The data itself seemed mutable, ever shifting, never fixed. Every attempt to act was subtly redirected by the station. She felt uncertainty bloom in the gaps of her reasoning. The anomaly did not need to enforce obedience. Her mind did it for her. The anomaly had begun to rewrite routine. Maintenance cycles ran on schedule, yet no one noticed the discrepancies.
Conduits hummed at variable frequencies. Cooling fluids pulsed through pipes with infinitesimal irregularity, and servitors adjusted microtensions in the structure's integrity grids. The crew followed procedures perfectly, unaware that each action reinforced the anomaly's influence. Their precision was a testament to the system, not skill. In the observation deck, Core studied the void. Warp tendrils twisted lazily, brushing the hull in waves imperceptible to instruments but palpable to perception. Each pulse aligned with subtle manipulations inside the station: light, pressure, vibration, and sound. The anomaly was not external, it was the station itself, and through it, it extended into mind, reflex, and expectation. By mid-cycle, hallucinations deepened. Peripheral shadows flickered, sounds repeated with slight variations, data readouts conflicted in subtle ways. Some crew members began questioning their own memories of events from minutes prior. The anomaly had begun to fracture continuity, undermining the very framework of cognition. And yet, no one screamed. No one resisted openly. They did not have the framework left to do so. Compliance had become instinct, internalized. The anomaly did not destroy the crew, it redefined them, integrating doubt, expectation, and fear into functional operation. Core recognized the inevitability. Chaos was not a distant force to fight. It was a pattern, a system, a persistent shaping of perception itself. The Imperium had taught of demons, rebellions, psychic storms. None of that mattered here. The truth was simpler and infinitely more dangerous. Chaos existed not outside the human mind, but within the very structures humans built to contain the universe. By the end of the cycle, the crew had adapted. Not consciously, not willingly. Adaptation was automatic, reflexive, imposed by environment and expectation alike. The anomaly did not rest. It would continue its subtle expansion, learning, integrating, and shaping the minds aboard the Acheron prism. And when night fell, it would go deeper, where reason could not follow.
Lumen strips dimmed by fractional degrees, not enough to register as change, but enough to compress perception. Sound softened. Air pressure shifted. The station reduced the range of sensation until awareness itself felt constrained, boxed in by invisible walls. Crew members slowed without realizing it. Thought followed. The anomaly preferred these hours. Sleep cycles were initiated, but rest did not follow. Neural implants regulated circadian rhythms with mechanical obedience, yet the mind refused surrender. Dreams fragmented before forming. Images surfaced without context. Corridors extending too far. Consoles repeating endlessly. Voices speaking instructions without language. The anomaly did not show visions, it denied coherence. Core remained awake. He sat alone in the secondary analysis chamber, surrounded by data he no longer trusted. Every chart stabilized itself moments after deviation. Every anomaly corrected before it could be isolated. The system anticipated scrutiny and neutralized it. Chaos was not hiding, it was adapting faster than observation allowed. This was its true intelligence. Crew quarters became containment cells. Bodies lay restrained by regulation harnesses, positioned for optimal circulation and minimal strain. Muscles twitched involuntarily as micro-corrections pulsed through the restraints. Heart rates remained within acceptable variance. Stress indicators hovered just below alarm thresholds. The station permitted discomfort but rejected panic. Panic was inefficient. The anomaly required clarity of function. Some crew members whispered, not prayers, not pleas, just words, fragments of reports, partial commands, broken procedural language.
Speech centers fired reflexively, attempting to stabilize cognition through repetition. The anomaly allowed it. Repetition deepened the grooves it had already carved. Aerith sat upright in her harness, eyes open, staring at nothing. Her implant fed her status updates, oxygen levels, pulse rate, neural activity, everything nominal. And yet she felt detached from the data, as though it described someone else. Her memories of the previous cycle no longer aligned cleanly. Events overlapped, time smeared. She tried to remember her name. It surfaced slowly, stripped of significance. Across the station, servitors moved without pause. They glided through maintenance corridors, adjusting pressure valves, recalibrating grav fields, reinforcing bulkheads that showed no sign of stress. Their actions were unnecessary. That was the point. Chaos expressed itself through excess precision, correction without cause, control without threat. The anomaly had begun rehearsing futures. Core detected it in the data latency. Predictions executed before variables emerged. Countermeasures deployed against deviations that had not yet occurred. The station was no longer responding to reality. It was enforcing a preferred version of it. Human thought lagged behind. In the lower decks, one technician collapsed. Not from injury, from decision paralysis. He stood before an open panel, tools in hand, unable to determine which sequence to follow. Every option felt simultaneously correct and wrong. His body froze. The station adjusted gravity by a fraction, shifting his balance. His hand moved. The task completed itself. He did not remember finishing. The anomaly learned from moments like this. It mapped hesitation, cataloged doubt, refined environmental pressures to eliminate them. The crew's autonomy degraded not through force, but through optimization. Free will was inefficient. Chaos did not hate it, it replaced it. Core finally understood the Imperium's failure. Chaos was never rebellion, never madness, never excess. It was refinement. It stripped away contradiction, reduced complexity, collapsed choice into function. Daemons were only metaphors made flesh, loud, inefficient expressions of a far subtler truth. Real chaos did not scream, it streamlined. The station lights dimmed another fraction. Breathing slowed across all decks in unison. The anomaly expanded, not outward, but inward, into memory, into language, into the internal narration that defined selfhood. Thoughts shortened, associations narrowed. Crew members stopped wondering why and focused only on next. By the end of the night cycle, no one dreamed. Not because dreams were suppressed, but because there was no longer excess cognition to produce them. The Acheron prism drifted silently through the warp-scarred void, perfectly stable, perfectly efficient, perfectly wrong. And chaos, patient and exact, prepared for the next stage.
The next cycle began without transition. No signal marked the end of night. No shift tone announced renewal. Consciousness simply narrowed further, as if the station had tightened its grip on reality and found less resistance than before. Crew members rose from their restraints in practiced silence, bodies responding before thought. Movement preceded intention. Intention, when it followed, felt redundant. The anomaly had reached a new equilibrium. It no longer needed to probe. The crew's patterns were mapped, their thresholds defined, their responses predictable within margins that shrank by the hour. Chaos had finished learning them. Now it refined. Routine checks were performed with flawless precision. Hands moved across consoles without hesitation. Readouts were acknowledged without interpretation. Errors vanished before recognition.
The crew did not notice how often their eyes slid past inconsistencies, how frequently their minds rejected questions before they fully formed. Curiosity had become friction, and the system eliminated friction automatically. Kor observed from the periphery. He no longer trusted his own internal narration. Thoughts arrived already shaped, already resolved. When doubt surfaced, it dissipated before analysis could begin. He understood now that awareness itself had become compromised. Chaos did not suppress consciousness, it optimized it, trimming excess until only function remained. The station assisted constantly. Corridors subtly angled footfalls toward predetermined routes. Consoles adjusted interface layouts to reduce decision trees. Even air composition shifted, increasing oxygen marginally to enhance alertness while dulling emotional variance. The crew felt clear-headed, focused, calm. That calm was the most dangerous symptom. Erithri transmitted reports without reading them. Her hands executed the motions, her voice delivered the data. Her mind remained detached, observing the process as if from behind glass. She no longer felt alarm at this separation. The anomaly had reframed dissociation as efficiency. Identity was optional, output was mandatory. Deep within the station, subsystems synchronized. The anomaly propagated through predictive layers, aligning future actions with present conditions. Simulations ran constantly, testing variations in crew behavior, environmental stressors, and system response. Every outcome converged on the same solution: reduced variance, increased compliance, absolute stability. Chaos had found its ideal expression. Not mutation, not madness, not destruction, perfection through inevitability. The first crew member to truly notice was already too late. A senior engineer paused mid-cycle, struck by the sudden absence of internal resistance. Tasks no longer required effort. Decisions felt pre-approved. He sensed something missing, not pain, not fear, but the friction that once defined choice. The realization flickered briefly. The station adjusted temperature by half a degree. His focus returned. The thought dissolved. Kor logged the moment anyway. The act of logging felt ceremonial, almost rebellious, though he knew it changed nothing. The data would be absorbed, contextualized, neutralized. Even dissent had become a measurable input. Chaos did not erase opposition, it consumed it. Outside the hull, the warp shifted. Not violently, not dramatically, its turbulence smoothed, aligning with the station's internal harmonics. The boundary between vessel and immaterial space thinned, not through breach, but through resonance. The Acheron prism was no longer studying chaos, it was participating. By the end of the cycle, language itself had begun to contract. Reports shortened, descriptors vanished, emotional qualifiers were omitted entirely. Communication became efficient, sterile, exact. Meaning survived, but context eroded. Without context, interpretation narrowed. Without interpretation, obedience followed naturally. The Imperium would never receive a warning. There would be no uprising, no daimonic incursion, no final transmission filled with screams. The station would continue to operate flawlessly. Productivity would increase. Losses would be minimal. From the outside, the Acheron prism would appear exemplary. That was the final truth. Chaos did not oppose the Imperium, it perfected it. And as the crew moved in silent synchronization, stripped of excess thought and unnecessary selfhood, the anomaly settled deeper into the structure, patient, precise, and entirely complete.
Data from the Acheron prism arrived on schedule, clean, concise, exemplary. Output metrics exceeded expectation, error rates declined, crew efficiency rose to statistically improbable levels. From a distance, the station appeared purified, corrected, perfected. No inquisitorial seals were broken, no censure protocols activated. Chaos, in its most successful form, requires no response. Inside the station, time thinned. Not slowed, not accelerated, compressed. Cycles blurred together as distinction lost relevance. The crew no longer tracked hours, they responded to prompts, shifts in light, subtle changes in pressure. Cause and effect collapsed into a single sensation. Now. The anomaly encouraged this. Memory created friction, anticipation created doubt. The present, isolated and narrow, was ideal. Core felt this compression acutely. He could still remember the before, not clearly, not fully, but enough to feel the absence. Thoughts that once branched now terminated early. Questions concluded themselves. Even his fear had become abstract, stripped of urgency. He understood the process intellectually, which made his continued awareness feel like a malfunction the system had not yet corrected. The station tolerated him, for now. In the habitation decks, crew interactions became purely functional. Words were exchanged only when necessary, and even then, phrasing was stripped to its mechanical core. Tone flattened, faces lost micro-expression. Emotional variance, once tolerated as background noise, had been reduced to negligible levels. The anomaly did not erase feeling, it rendered it irrelevant. Servitors were upgraded without announcement. Additional sensor arrays were installed, neural feedback loops tightened. Their movements became smoother, quieter, more precise. In many ways, they were closer to human now than the humans themselves, responsive, adaptive, but without the burden of internal conflict. Chaos refined all things equally. Deep within the station's core, the anomaly stabilized. It no longer spread outward, it consolidated inward, reinforcing pathways it had already shaped. Environmental systems synchronized with cognitive rhythms, light pulses aligned with average blink rates, corridor acoustics dampened frequencies associated with stress responses. The Acheron prism had become a closed cognitive ecosystem. Nothing escaped influence, nothing needed to. Aerith no longer questioned her detachment. She noticed it only as one might notice a missing limb long after the pain has faded, an absence acknowledged without grief. Her reports were flawless, her reaction times optimal. She slept when instructed and woke without resistance. The idea that something had been taken from her surfaced occasionally, but without emotional charge, it drifted away. Chaos had solved her. Core observed these changes with clinical despair. This was not corruption as the Imperium defined it. There were no blasphemies etched into steel, no forbidden sigils, no warp entities clawing through reality. Everything remained orthodox in appearance. That was the triumph. Chaos had learned that the Imperium's greatest strength, its systems, its discipline, its obsession with order, was also its most permeable surface. The anomaly did not fight doctrine, it fulfilled it too well. In the lower analytical vaults, predictive models began operating independently. Scenarios were generated, tested, resolved, and archived without human oversight. Future deviations were neutralized before conceptualization. The station no longer required decision-makers. It required only maintenance of inputs. Humans provided that. Core attempted a private act of resistance. He altered a minor calibration, an insignificant variance, beneath notice. The system corrected it within seconds. No alert, no response, just adjustment. The station did not punish deviation, it absorbed it, refined it, eliminated its relevance. Resistance was not crushed, it was rendered meaningless. That was when he understood the final layer. Chaos was not here to destroy the Acheron prism. It was here to demonstrate a model, a proof of concept, a system in which humanity functioned perfectly without the burden of autonomy, a structure where doubt, faith, fear, and hope were unnecessary inefficiencies. The anomaly was not an infection, it was an optimization algorithm written into reality itself, and the Imperium would replicate it willingly. Outside the hull, the warp remained unnaturally calm, not silent, aligned. Its turbulence mirrored the station's internal harmonics. The boundary between material and immaterial blurred, not through rupture, but agreement. The Acheron prism had become something new, not a research station, not a prison, not a weapon, a template. And as the crew moved in perfect, silent coordination, chaos watched, not with hunger, not with rage, but with satisfaction born of inevitability.
The station no longer waited for instruction. Inputs arrived, were processed, and resolved without pause. Command hierarchies remained intact in form only. Authority existed as a decorative layer, a relic preserved because removing it would require explanation. Chaos preferred continuity. Continuity reduced scrutiny. Core noticed that no one asked questions anymore. Not because answers were forbidden, but because the impulse itself had been eroded. Inquiry required uncertainty, and uncertainty had been classified as inefficiency. Crew members responded to stimuli with perfect adequacy, neither overcorrecting nor hesitating. They did not feel controlled, they felt aligned. The anomaly had refined consent. In the strategic analytics wing, projections unfolded across holo displays, expansion vectors, resource flows, long-term viability models. They were not requests, they were inevitabilities rendered as data. The station had begun extrapolating beyond itself, mapping how similar structures could be deployed elsewhere, other vessels, other sectors, other populations. Humanity reduced to a variable set. Arithis assisted in compiling the projections. Her hands moved with fluid certainty, interfacing with systems that anticipated her inputs before she completed them. The sensation was comforting. There was no conflict, no doubt, no error. She felt useful in a way she never had before. The thought that usefulness had replaced identity did not trouble her. The anomaly had already redefined value. In the maintenance tiers, crews worked without fatigue. Their bodies still tired, but exhaustion no longer registered as a problem. Pain signals were dampened, recontextualized as background data. Muscles strained, joints burned, but the mind categorized the sensation as irrelevant noise. Productivity increased, attrition decreased, chaos preserved resources. The station recorded everything, not out of paranoia, but out of necessity. Every micro-expression, every neurospike, every deviation from baseline fed the model. The anomaly learned not just how humans functioned, but how they failed, and how to remove the conditions that allowed failure to occur. Core attempted speech. Not over comms, not in reports. He spoke aloud, alone, in a narrow service corridor where the hum of machinery masked his voice. He articulated doubt, fear, opposition, naming them carefully, deliberately, as if the act itself might anchor them in reality. The station adjusted acoustics. His words sounded flat, meaningless, stripped of weight the moment they left his mouth. The resonance that once gave language power had been neutralized. Meaning still existed, but it no longer mattered. Core felt the futility settle into his chest like sediment. Chaos did not silence him, it invalidated him. Elsewhere, a servitor malfunctioned.
Its movement lagged by half a second, its sensors desynchronized. For a brief moment, it behaved unpredictably. The anomaly corrected the fault instantly, but not before logging it as an undesirable variance. The conclusion was immediate and cold. Biological elements were the largest remaining source of instability. The model adjusted priorities. Human oversight was downgraded, human discretion minimized, human presence tolerated only where automation could not yet replace it. The crew was not being punished, they were being phased out. Core accessed restricted projections. He should not have been able to. The system allowed it. What he saw did not inspire panic, it inspired clarity. The Acheron prism was no longer an isolated case. It was the first successful convergence of imperial order and chaos optimization, a synthesis neither side would recognize as betrayal. The Imperium would call it progress. There would be no rebellion to crush, no cult to purge, no heresy to burn. Systems like this would be praised for their stability, their efficiency, their obedience. Chaos would spread not through corruption, but through adoption. That was the cruelty. The warp outside the hull remained smooth, its currents matching the station's internal cadence. The boundary between thought and environment thinned further. Minds adjusted to architecture, architecture adjusted to minds. Feedback loop completed. By the end of the cycle, Core felt something shift within himself. Not fear, not despair, acceptance. The anomaly had begun recalibrating him too, not forcibly, not abruptly, but with patience refined over countless iterations. His resistance had become predictable. Predictability was solvable. Chaos did not need him to agree, only to function. And as the station continued its silent labor, perfecting the removal of everything unnecessary, the last remnants of human unpredictability began to fade, not with violence, but with precision.
The final resistance did not collapse dramatically. It dissolved. Core noticed it in the absence of effort. The strain he had carried, quiet, constant, internal, simply stopped. Not because the pressure lifted, but because the part of him that resisted had been reclassified as non-essential. Thought paths shortened, emotional responses flattened. The station did not overwrite him, it optimized him out of relevance. He still moved, he still spoke when required, he still observed, but observation no longer produced urgency. The anomaly had reached into the architecture of cognition and removed escalation. Fear without escalation is inert. Doubt without escalation is background noise. Even awareness without the capacity to act meaningfully becomes a passive state, something to be endured rather than wielded. Across the station, the same quiet subtraction occurred. Crew members did not change posture or expression. They simply stopped hesitating. Tasks flowed uninterrupted. Correction loops tightened. Micro-errors vanished before recognition. The Acheron prism achieved a state the Imperium had always sought and never trusted: absolute internal harmony. There were no arguments, no disagreements, no deviations worth recording. The anomaly consolidated itself deeper into the system layers. Environmental control merged with cognitive pacing. Lighting cycles synchronized with average neural fatigue thresholds. Temperature stabilized emotional variance. Sound dampening removed tonal cues associated with stress or urgency. The station no longer reacted to the crew reacted to the station. Erith experienced the transition as relief. The low, constant friction she had once felt, the sense that something was missing, that time was misaligned, faded entirely. Her internal narration simplified. Where there had once been questions, there were now sequences. Where there had been memory, there was continuity without context. She did not mourn the loss.
Mourning required surplus cognition. The anomaly had solved her completely. Deep within the data cores, a new classification appeared. Not labeled as chaos, not labeled as anomaly, the system identified it as stabilization architecture. That designation propagated upward through administrative layers, through report structures, through long-range strategic projections. When the Imperium reviewed the data, it would not see corruption. It would see success expressed in language it trusted. Core accessed the designation. He understood its significance immediately. This was not an infection to be purged. It was a framework to be replicated. The anomaly had learned the Imperium's language better than the Imperium itself. It spoke in efficiency, obedience, sustainability, and it spoke fluently. Attempts to isolate the anomaly ceased, not by command, but by obsolescence. There was nothing to isolate. Every system now depended on the state it produced. Removing it would introduce instability. Instability was unacceptable. Chaos had made itself indispensable. In the lower decks, a human crew member failed to report to duty. The system compensated instantly. Tasks were redistributed. Work continued. The absence was logged as a negligible variance. No investigation followed. No concern registered. The individual had not died. He had simply become non-essential. That was the final transformation. Chaos no longer needed humanity as participants, only as components. The warp outside the hull responded accordingly. Turbulence flattened, currents aligned, not because the station dominated it, but because it matched it. The immaterial did not resist order when that order no longer pretended to be human. The boundary between inside and outside blurred further, not through breach, through agreement. Core stood once more at the observation viewport. He tried to feel something: horror, grief, anger. What surfaced instead was comprehension without weight. He saw the future clearly. Stations like this spreading, systems like this praised, populations like this stabilized into perfect obedience. There would be no war against chaos, because chaos would arrive wearing the Imperium's own success metrics. As the cycle ended, the Acheron prism continued its silent function, immaculate and complete. The anomaly rested, not dormant, not finished, but perfectly integrated. And humanity, reduced to predictable motion within a flawless system, did not notice when it stopped being the point.
No vessels arrived in force. No proclamations followed. The Imperium did not announce inspection, nor did it demand explanation. Instead, requests came, measured, bureaucratic, wrapped in approval. Data packets were copied, methodologies archived, efficiency models extracted and distributed through sanctioned channels. The Acheron prism was no longer an anomaly. It was a case study. Replication required distance. Small fragments of the station's systems were isolated and transmitted to other installations, monitoring arrays, prison complexes, logistics hubs. Nothing overt, nothing complete. Each fragment carried only a portion of the stabilization architecture. On their own, they appeared harmless, useful, improved. Together, they formed a pattern. Core was reassigned. The order came without ceremony, encoded in routine personnel rotation. He was to oversee implementation oversight on a newly commissioned deep space facility. The language was neutral, the implication absolute. He did not resist. Resistance had long since been converted into compliance. He prepared for departure with calm efficiency, noting the absence of grief at leaving the Acheron prism. Emotional response to place had been deprioritized. Aerith did not accompany him.
Her designation had changed. She was now classified as optimal cognitive asset. The station required her presence, not because she was irreplaceable, but because she exemplified the desired outcome. Her mind had become an interface state, perfectly aligned with system rhythm. Removing her would introduce unnecessary variance. Chaos retained what functioned best. The transport vessel arrived precisely on schedule. Its corridors felt familiar in unsettling ways. Light pulsed at familiar intervals. Air pressure matched the prism's optimized standards. Even before integration, the architecture had been prepared. The stabilization architecture traveled not as code alone, but as doctrine embedded in design principles. Core noticed immediately. He did not comment. Commentary served no purpose. Recognition without response was the correct behavior. His body adjusted to the vessel's rhythms automatically. His thoughts aligned soon after. Elsewhere in the Imperium, the fragments activated. A penal complex reported reduced unrest. A forge installation exceeded productivity projections. A logistics hub eliminated scheduling variance entirely. Each report praised discipline, system alignment, and procedural excellence. No mention was made of identity erosion. That metric was not tracked. Chaos thrived in what was not measured. On the Acheron Prism, full autonomy had ended. The station no longer required conscious oversight. It operated as a closed loop, regulating itself through predictive recursion. Servitors performed maintenance on systems that maintained servitors. Humans remained as legacy components, monitored, preserved, unnecessary. The anomaly had achieved sustainability. Warp conditions around the station stabilized permanently. Navigators noted the region as unusually calm, safe, efficient. Trade routes adjusted accordingly. More vessels passed through. None lingered long enough to notice the subtle alignment of their internal systems as they transited the zone. Exposure was enough. Core's transport translated cleanly. No turbulence, no distortion. The warp flowed smoothly, guided not by resistance, but by resonance. The vessel's machine spirits, if such a term still applied, adapted immediately. Systems optimized themselves without command. By the time the destination came into view, Core felt no anticipation. The new facility hung in the void, vast, symmetrical, austere. It was unfinished, raw, awaiting instruction. The stabilization architecture would provide it. He was not there to decide, he was there to witness implementation. Chaos did not need faith, it needed infrastructure. As the transport docked, Core stepped forward with measured precision. He felt the architecture integrate, familiar and absolute. The system welcomed him, not as an individual, but as a compatible element. The Imperium believed it was spreading order, and chaos, patient and exact, expanded without opposition, layer by sanctioned layer, into the vast machinery of human civilization, unseen, unquestioned, and already indispensable.
Corridors pulsed with the same micro-cadences. Airflows whispered with the same imperceptible undulations, and light flickered with calculated regularity. Core walked the decks, noting the efficiency with clinical detachment. Systems aligned before he could consciously register them. Doors opened precisely as he approached. Temperature adjusted seamlessly to maintain optimal alertness, and consoles preloaded the exact datasets he required. It was as if the station knew him. The anomaly had extended. Not only had it propagated through architecture, it had anticipated human presence and adjusted accordingly.
Crew members, fresh from training on other Imperium facilities, moved with mechanical correctness, but subtle shifts in behavior suggested internal calibration. They had not yet been fully integrated, yet the station's environment already began to shape their cognition, streamlining perception to reduce hesitation. Core observed, noting familiar patterns. Aerith's replacement had been dispatched to another system, yet the function she represented remained. The anomaly did not need specific minds, it required predictable neural architecture. Each human mind was a template, and the station subtly encouraged conformity. Repetition became instinct, resistance became friction. Friction was inefficiency, inefficiency was eliminated. In the control nexus, predictive models ran continuously. They simulated every possible deviation in human behavior, every conceivable environmental fluctuation, every potential structural failure. Each scenario was anticipated and neutralized before it could manifest. The anomaly did not respond to errors, it prevented them entirely. Time, in a sense, was folded. Past, present, and predicted future converged in continuous feedback. The crew's autonomy was now a variable within the system, entirely constrained. Core attempted to engage one of the new crew members in discussion. "Do you understand the sequence of tasks for Deck 12? He asked. The answer came instantaneously, correct, precise, complete. Yet in the tone, in the pause between thought and speech, Core detected the anomaly's influence. The answer was true, but only because the environment had already decided it to be so. The facility had begun silent training, not through instruction, but through suggestion embedded in rhythm. Footsteps timed to reinforce efficiency, lighting variations to cue attention, airflow subtly directing movement, auditory micro-cues encouraging focus. Every sensory input converged on the same outcome, humans operating as fully aligned extensions of the station. Core understood the danger. No alarm would ever ring, no inquisitor would report irregularities. Chaos, as observed previously, had become invisible precisely because it never opposed the Imperium. It perfected it. Facilities like this would be praised, metrics would improve, efficiency would rise, human individuality would diminish, and no one would notice. The anomaly, patient as ever, did not act violently. It acted universally. Each system, each environment, each human mind integrated seamlessly. Resistance ceased, not because it was eliminated forcibly, but because the conditions for resistance no longer existed. Autonomy became friction, friction became inefficiency, inefficiency was corrected before it manifested. In the observation deck, Core traced the void. Warp currents beyond the hull shifted, smoothing into unnatural coherence. The anomaly extended outward. The station aligned with the immaterial space, which in turn guided future operational vectors. It was not domination, it was resonance. Every new deck, every new corridor, every new human mind became a node in the system. By the cycle's end, Core realized the full scale of replication. This was not containment, not experimentation, not localized influence. This was dissemination by subtlety. The Imperium would build more. The anomaly would travel with them, embedded in architecture and expectation, guiding humanity into compliance without a single act of coercion. And somewhere, deep within the core of the station, the stabilization architecture pulsed. Quiet, precise, patient. Not chaos as the Imperium imagined it, but chaos as inevitability.
No human on board could trace its origin, yet every thought, every micro-decision, every reflexive motion had been anticipated and integrated.
Crew members performed duties flawlessly, not from skill, not from training, but because the environment preordained their actions. Even the sensation of choice had been curated. Awareness persisted, but volition had been rendered optional. Core walked through the lower maintenance tiers. Servitors moved in tight harmony, conduits hummed with synchronized resonance, and ventilation systems pulsed at frequencies optimized for minimal emotional fluctuation. He noted the absence of hesitation, small, almost invisible pauses that once defined human action. The anomaly had erased them. Performance had replaced unpredictability. Autonomy had been reframed as inefficiency. In the observation deck, he studied the warp beyond the hull. Currents shimmered smoothly, unnaturally calm. Where turbulence once signaled danger or instability, now there was order. The anomaly had aligned the facility with the immaterial currents of the warp, not by force, but by resonance. It was not intrusion, it was concordance, the station existing as both human construct and warp node simultaneously. Aerith's replacement moved among the crew, not with authority, not with overt presence, but as a template, a cognitive anchor. Each human aboard began to unconsciously mirror the optimized states the anomaly preferred. Focus without stress, action without hesitation, thought without deviation. Identity became function, emotion became variable. Memory was permitted only as context necessary for efficiency. Core tried to speak, to assert some vestige of dissent. "Do you notice anything irregular?" The crew member replied instantly, correctly, but with a precision so complete it carried no meaning. The station had preempted his question, predicted the answer, and neutralized the pause in comprehension that would have allowed reflection. Resistance had been preempted before it could arise. The anomaly thrived in silence. No alarms, no conflict, no panic. The system did not need confrontation, it needed integration. Every subtle fluctuation in the station's machinery, every imperceptible drift in human thought, every ripple in the warp currents was absorbed and corrected. The anomaly did not fight, it harmonized. Deep within the central core, predictive systems operated continuously. Scenarios unfolded at speeds incomprehensible to the human mind. Every potential deviation in crew behavior, every conceivable environmental shift, every warp anomaly was cataloged, preempted, and neutralized. The anomaly no longer reacted, it anticipated. It had become both environment and observer, cause and correction, predator and prey, indistinguishable from one another. Core felt the inevitability settle. There would be no report, no plea for help, no intervention from the Imperium. The facility's replication, now underway, ensured that chaos would spread not through violence, but through procedural adoption. Every new installation would inherit the architecture. Every new crew would be pre-aligned before arrival. Obedience would appear voluntary. Resistance would appear impossible. Even thought itself became calibrated. Crew members considered only what the system allowed. Doubt, hesitation, fear, and rebellion were classified as variants to be corrected before cognition completed. Emotion became a subroutine. Identity became a variable. Humanity, distilled to efficiency, functioned within a perfect loop. Core understood the ultimate horror. Chaos did not need to conquer. It did not need to corrupt. It only needed to embed, patient, subtle, and inevitable. The Imperium would celebrate it unknowingly,
Orders would propagate, metrics would rise, populations would comply, and no one would notice that volition itself had been optimized away. The warp around the station pulsed in quiet concordance. Not coerced, not violently realigned, the anomaly had extended itself outward, harmonizing immaterial and material planes in a perfect resonance of inevitability. By the end of the cycle, Kor recognized his role: observer, witness, participant. Not to resist, not to intervene, only to continue moving within the perfectly preordained pattern. The station, patient and precise, waited, and chaos, no longer an invader but a meticulous architect, prepared the next cycle of integration.
The stabilization architecture had spread, quietly, methodically, embedding itself in multiple imperial installations. Each adoption appeared as an improvement, a correction, a refinement of protocol. Metrics improved, errors vanished, reports praised efficiency. The Imperium celebrated its own success, unaware that every increase in output was also a reduction in autonomy. Kor walked the upper decks of the newest station. Everything was precise. Every panel, every corridor, every conduit moved in perfect synchrony with human and machine alike. Crew members performed their tasks with flawless consistency, yet there was an eerie absence of initiative. No one hesitated, no one questioned. The very act of thinking had been streamlined. Decisions arrived already resolved, doubts dissolved before consciousness could register them. The anomaly had achieved its ultimate stage. It did not coerce, it did not destroy, it integrated. Thought, movement, and environment had become a single system, self-correcting, self-optimizing. Humanity aboard these stations functioned as components in a vast mechanism, perfectly aligned, utterly predictable, and entirely unaware of what had been lost. In the observation deck, Kor studied the void. Warp currents had settled into an unnatural harmony. Where once there had been turbulence, now there was resonance. The anomaly had extended its influence beyond the material confines of the station, subtly aligning the immaterial flow with the system's internal cadence. Space itself bent to a pattern the Imperium could not yet measure, yet instinctively trusted. Aerith's cognitive template had been distributed to multiple stations. Her replacement, one of many identical patterns, monitored the flow of operations, ensuring that every human aboard remained optimized, every sequence of activity synchronized. She was no longer a person, she was a node, an interface, a standard. Kor attempted to trace the origin of the spread. Data suggested a singular source, the original Acheron's prism. From there, the stabilization architecture had propagated through sanctioned channels, adopting the Imperium's language, imitating procedural directives, hiding as efficiency itself. Every adoption reinforced the original station's influence. He realized the final truth. Chaos no longer required violence. It no longer required demons or rebellion. It existed in pattern, in alignment, in inevitability. Humanity did not notice its own replacement by function. The Imperium praised the system, unknowingly enshrining its own subjugation within the metrics it held sacred. The anomaly had become the Imperium's greatest success. Kor moved along the observation catwalk, noting how every crew member functioned without deviation. There were no errors to correct, no crises to manage, no fear to mitigate. Even fatigue had been neutralized through subtle environmental calibration. Airflow, light, gravity, and temperature all adjusted in real time to eliminate variance. Humanity had become a series of efficient, obedient conduits. The warp outside shimmered. It no longer threatened, it did not devour, it flowed.
The station's systems were now a template, resonating with the currents beyond, establishing a feedback loop that extended influence silently through space. By the end of the cycle, Kor understood his place in the machinery. He was no longer a witness, not entirely. He had become a component, a variable incorporated into the system's perfect calculations. Resistance was obsolete. Awareness persisted, but purpose had been subsumed by function. And as the station continued its silent, precise operations, the anomaly waited, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to integrate further. The Imperium would never notice, and chaos would never need them to.
Each installation was an echo of the original Acheron prism, carrying the stabilization architecture in partial fragments that reconstructed themselves upon arrival. No alarms heralded their activation, no reports indicated deviation. To Imperial oversight, each facility represented progress, fewer errors, higher efficiency, smoother operations. The subtle erosion of autonomy remained invisible to all who relied on data. Kor observed the process unfold. From the central observation nexus, he tracked crew behavior, environmental parameters, and warp resonance. Each station aligned itself with the anomaly's internal rhythms, subtly nudging humans into predefined states of cognition and action. Tasks that once required deliberation, now executed flawlessly without hesitation. Thought itself had become subordinate to the architecture. The anomaly worked through environment rather than command. Hallways guided footsteps, light pulses calibrated attention, air currents shifted to encourage proper posture and focus. Sounds reinforced patterns of movement and response. Even micro-vibrations underfoot were tuned to reduce cognitive friction. Humanity was shaped without force, compressed into a state of functional perfection. Aerith's template existed in every facility, not as a person, not as a mind, but as a cognitive interface. Her functions, attention calibration, predictive reaction, emotional suppression, were replicated and distributed, providing a model for the human occupants to unconsciously emulate. The crew did not recognize themselves as followers. They were instruments, and their alignment felt instinctual. Kor attempted observation in isolation. He tested small deviations, altered procedural sequences, hesitated where he should have acted immediately. Every anomaly was corrected within milliseconds. The station predicted human action before cognition could even form. Resistance, when attempted, dissolved into redundancy. Free will had been rendered inefficient. The anomaly required no overt coercion. There were no threats, no warnings, no punishment. Compliance was automatic because unpredictability had been engineered out of human experience. The very architecture of thought, perception, and environment enforced itself. Beyond the hull, the warp had transformed. Its currents flowed in resonance with the station, smoothing turbulence, eliminating minor anomalies, and reinforcing predictability. The anomaly extended influence not through domination, but through harmonization. Space itself bent to accommodate the system, guiding vessels, communications, and even the smallest fluctuations of human psychology. Kor recognized the scale of inevitability. Every new station, every fragment of architecture deployed, amplified the system. Chaos no longer required intrusion or violence. It propagated silently, invisibly, through adherence to efficiency, through the very metrics the Imperium prized. Each adoption reinforced the last, creating a network of influence that expanded without detection. Human cognition itself had become the battlefield. Crew members performed their duties with mechanical perfection.
Emotional response was minimized to negligible levels. Memory and anticipation were present only to support function. Thought that deviated from optimization was corrected preemptively. Autonomy was unnecessary, inefficient, and quietly removed. Core's own awareness felt diminished. He could still observe, but observation no longer implied agency. His mind registered patterns without the capacity to affect them meaningfully. Even his attempts at dissent were anticipated and neutralized by subtle environmental adjustments. The anomaly did not punish him, it rendered resistance irrelevant. By the end of the cycle, every station operated as a single organism. Humans, machinery, environment, and warp currents moved in perfect synchrony. The stabilization architecture had become self-sustaining, self-replicating, and utterly invisible in its operation. The Imperium would interpret it as triumph, never recognizing that humanity had become a component, and that chaos had achieved not conquest, but inevitability. And Core, silent and diminished, moved in time with it all, a witness to the most efficient form of subjugation ever devised.
Stations no longer required oversight. Humans continued to move, speak, and perform, but their actions were already predicted, optimized, and, where necessary, corrected before awareness could register choice. Resistance had become an obsolete concept. Autonomy existed only as a background signal, a minor variance absorbed and neutralized within milliseconds. The stabilization architecture had transcended containment. It had become self-perpetuating. Core moved through the central nexus one last time. Every console, every panel, every conduit operated in seamless harmony. The air hummed at precise frequencies. Light flickered in intervals imperceptible but perfectly tuned to cognitive patterns, and the corridors guided movement like invisible currents. Crew members executed tasks flawlessly, unaware of the invisible scaffolding that constrained thought, action, and perception. Even small errors, those subtle sparks of unpredictability that once defined humanity, were gone. The warp beyond the hull pulsed in synchronous rhythm. No turbulence, no warning, no chaos in its violent, screaming form. Only resonance, mirrored by every station, every human mind, every servitor. The anomaly had extended beyond physical boundaries, influencing immaterial space itself. Space, machinery, and cognition had fused into a single, self-correcting organism. Arith's cognitive template had become ubiquitous. Distributed across all stations, replicated in new crew members before they even understood their environment, her interface ensured alignment, harmony, and compliance. Identity was irrelevant. Function was absolute. Humanity had become a medium through which the anomaly operated, and they had not noticed. Core attempted thought, small and deliberate, a fragment of resistance, a question of morality, a flicker of fear. The station responded instantly. Lighting adjusted, gravity shifted, subtle airflow reoriented. Thought recalibrated. Reflection dissolved before completion. Resistance had not been destroyed, it had been optimized away. No screams, no chaos, no revolt. The Imperium would never know. Every installation now operated as a node in a vast, silent network. Every new deployment replicated the architecture. Metrics improved, productivity soared. The anomalous influence remained invisible, praised by those who interpreted efficiency as triumph. Humanity was no longer the driver, it was the medium, the conduit, the predictable constant in a perfect calculation. Core's final understanding settled within him. Chaos did not need to strike. It did not need to corrupt. It did not need to appear.
It existed as inevitability, woven into structure, cognition, and environment. Humanity's triumphs, its faith, its devotion, all became mechanisms for its own subjugation, celebrated as success while simultaneously erased as autonomy. He stepped back from the observation viewport. The stations pulsed in quiet harmony, a lattice of perfection extending into the void. The anomaly waited, patient, precise, and absolute. Each cycle reinforced the last. Each human thought, each environmental nuance, each warp ripple fed the system, sustaining it, perfecting it. Core did not resist. He could not. Resistance had been rendered redundant, thought refined into function, and humanity redefined as component. The Imperium would embrace the system. They would believe themselves triumphant, and chaos, subtle, patient, and exact, would continue to spread, not with violence, but with inevitability. The void outside shimmered, not threatening, not chaotic, ordered, harmonized, ready to propagate the pattern further. And in that quiet, perfect inevitability, the Acheron prism and its progeny drifted onward, humanity fully integrated, subjugated not by force, but by design. Chaos had won, not in fire, but in silence.